The 2023 Formula One season will begin in Bahrain in just over a week. But first comes the winter test. From the 23rd to the 25th of February, the F1 teams will be in action with their new cars, some of which will be seen for the first time. What can we anticipate from the future testing days? Following a series of somewhat disappointing car launches, it remains to be seen how much of the new F1 cars we have seen, when the teams head to the circuit for the first time without limitations during the winter test. Shakedowns were conducted before these testing days. However, they confined the teams to a maximum distance of 100 kilometers and the usage of special Pirelli display tyres. As a result, the winter test will be the first meaningful test of strength before the Bahrain Grand Prix. Teams and drivers will have to rely on the 3-day test in Bahrain this year. For the first time, it will be obvious how far the individual teams' preparations from last winter have paid off. There won't be much time to work out any issues, because the first race of the season is only a week away. But will we see the true potential of the cars, or will the teams try to deceive us? So, what will the teams be up to on test days? We'll fill you in about that in today's video. We'll also include some exclusives we're anticipating to see this weekend. F1 test days are all about logging miles, collecting data, and putting the new cars on track for the first time after months and thousands of hours of development in the wind tunnel and through computer simulations. And due to the updated aero regulations, the teams hope to have done the most amount of work in the least amount of time, so they have the wind tunnel and CFD time left during the season to test new upgrades. Teams must determine if the work over the winter performs as expected, to see whether the new car is strong, whether it is reliable, and most crucially, whether it's quick. Data gathering is the name of the game, with those in Bahrain and the little army back at base crunching the figures to determine what the coming season could hold. All these numbers will lay the foundation for the strategies to come during the first races of the season. They even play a big part in the projected update schedule the teams will try to hold on to. Mercedes, for example, clocked 385 laps in Bahrain last year, over 7 Grand Prix lengths in only 3 days, as porpoising became the talk of the paddock. This, of course, led to Mercedes being of the first teams to publicly call for rule changes to battle the porpoising. And during testing, the more laps, the better. No one is there to clock the fastest time. Every team is trying to tweak their setup to its most optimal point. The first possible exclusive of the weekend will be the RB19, as all eyes will be on Red Bull Racing, who only made a passing reference to the RB19 during its presentation. The team of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez had already stated that they would just exhibit the livery, but even that required a magnifying glass to see the changes between the RB18 and the RB19. Subsequently, like last year, the Austrian racing stable completed a private shakedown at Silverstone. They did release some footage, but it was only a quick teaser and a few hazy shots, so we'll have to wait until the winter test, when the RB19 will take to the Bahrain International Circuit. It will be interesting to see if the team has made any changes to the winning concept they introduced last year. But even if they didn't want to make changes, they will have to make several adjustments due to technical rule modifications introduced by the FIA. There are several technical rule modifications that all cars must follow for the 2023 F1 season. The greater riding height is one of the most significant and contentious adjustments. Mercedes fought for this as Lewis Hamilton and George Russell's team struggled with porpoising all season. While the majority of F1 teams brushed it aside early in the season, Mercedes struggled with it for a long time. By the end of the year, the German racing stable also appeared to have mostly resolved the issue, but Toto Wolff continued to emphasize the significance of the regulation change. Although the FIA maintained that the floor adjustments were undertaken for safety reasons, most F1 teams questioned that allegation. The modified roll bars were one improvement that was obviously intended with safety in mind. Since the portion of Guan Yu Zhou's Alfa Romeo shattered in its severe collision at Silverstone, they had to be reinforced. Additional modifications include prohibiting problematic front and rear wing designs, such as those developed by Aston Martin and Mercedes in 2022. During the car debuts, however, both Mercedes and Ferrari look to have already devised a method to ensure that the new front wing design complies with the regulations. Next to these changes, it remains to be seen how much the winter test will reveal about their proportions at the start of the F1 season, as all the teams will be playing games to avoid revealing their hand or how fast their vehicle is until qualifying for the first race. This is frequently referred to as sandbagging. It essentially includes teams concealing their real performance by packing the car with gasoline, shutting down the engine, or having weight on board to slow them down a little. Expect major teams like Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes to sandbag to lower expectations ahead of the season opening. Next to this, there are a few odd things that happen during F1 preseason testing that only arise at this time of year and very seldom during the season. Large wash racks, as seen on your screen, will be seen on every car. It's an irregularity on the cars that are made to look as slick and fast as possible. This structure is an aero rake, which is used to monitor airflow over the car and around aerodynamically sensitive elements so that the teams can determine whether the air is performing as expected. And we'll also see the cars painted in high-vis green color called flow-vis paint. This is an additional tool to this array of sensors. The term flow visualization refers to the ability of the teams to visualize where the air is traveling in critical locations, such as the front wing, floor, and diffuser. It will be spread across the regions the team want to study, and as the car laps, the paint will begin to show where airflow is traveling, which is also important information for the other 9 squads to understand what their competitors are up to. But will these other 9 teams be able to spy on their competition? Well, yes, in some ways they will, as the teams won't be allowed to fully conceal their cars in the pit box during these testing days. From 2020, teams have been prohibited from hiding their cars in the garages, which means there are no barriers and TV cameras may peek in and sniff about. There are several exceptions, such as when a driver crashes and the car is brought to the pits for repairs. In addition, if the floor comes off, teams are permitted to close the curtains until it is replaced. Mostly because the hole inside of the car would be visible without it, meaning that the other teams could directly see what is working for a team and what is not. Now you know what is to be expected during the testing days. As for the timetable, these test days will be held from Thursday, February 23rd through Saturday, February 25th. Each day will be broken into 2 parts, the first lasting 4 hours and beginning at 10 o'clock local time. There will be a 1-hour break before the second session begins at 3 o'clock. This lasts 4.5 hours and ends just after dusk. During each session, just 1 car from each team is allowed on the circuit, reducing traffic. Most teams have their 2 drivers drive 1 session every day, although other teams divide the time differently or use backup drivers. Drivers may drive as much as they like in each session and have access to all 5 Pirelli tyres used during the season. What are your expectations? Will we see completely redesigned cars during the test? Or will we see the same old sandbagging? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell to stay updated with all the latest F1 news as the season is about to start. And be on the lookout for our next video, where we'll cover some of the biggest rule and car changes for the upcoming season. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.